Welcome to this video. In this class, I'll be doing two things. Firstly, I'll attempt the questions. Attempt the questions, and secondly, I'll explain how I was able to identify the answers. How to identify answers. Now, from time to time, I'll talk about distractors. I'll mention key things you want to do. Key things like key strategies and things to avoid. Alright, so let's begin. This is how it will go. I'll play the recording, I'll answer the questions, and I'll pause from time to time to explain how I was able to get the answer to certain questions and how I was able to, and the strategies and distractors I noticed as I answer. Just give me a second to quickly wipe this off. So I will have space to explain when the time comes. Alright, now let's begin.
Test 2. This is the IELTS Listening Test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to part 1.
So this is part 1.
Part 1. You will hear 2 friends talking about a guitar group. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
So you'll be given about 30 to 60 seconds depending on the number of questions. For instance, here we have questions 1 to 6, which means you'll be given about, say, 20 to 30 seconds. So in that time frame, this is what you want to do. You want to quickly take a look at the keywords. Of course, you start by looking at the instruction, then you proceed to look at the keywords in the questions. When you notice the keywords, it becomes easier to know what you're listening for in the recording. Remember, you're listening not just for keywords, but also words related to the keywords. So, keywords and words related. So let's begin with that. The first thing I can see here is the instruction. Remember, you have a time frame to scan. So just have 30 seconds at the back of your mind. We have one word and or a number. Then we have the heading, Oceanbrook Country Park. When you have one word and a number, you remember, it means you can write one word, you can write one word and a number, you can write just a number. Alright, now we have the park. Area is in hectares, so we're going to write a specific number. We'll have wetlands, lakes, ponds, and a dash, which means there's something that completes this series. lakes, ponds, and a dash. Children look at dash about plants. So children look at something about plants. Number 4, children geography includes learning to use a dash and compass. So what are you learning to use, which also includes a compass? What else? Number 5, leisure and tourism mostly concentrates on the park's something. So what does the park concentrate on under leisure and tourism? The last one, number 6, children make dash with natural materials and experiment with rhythm and speed. So what the children make with natural materials? So let's play the recording now. Remember, you've been given time to go through. You could do the same on your own. You could pause the video here, scan on your own for about 30 seconds, and then we begin.
Of our classes.
Okay. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm new to this area, so perhaps you could tell me something about the park first, please.
Of course. Altogether, the park covers 170 acres. That's 69 hectares. There are 3 main types of habitat: wetland, grassland, and woodland. The woods are well established and varied, with an oak plantation and other areas of mixed species.
Right.
The wetland is quite varied too. The original farmland was dug up around 40 years ago to extract gravel. Once this work was completed, the gravel pits filled with water, forming the 2 large lakes. There are also several smaller ones, ponds, and a stream that flows through the park.
Okay, so I suppose with these different habitats, there's quite a variety of wildlife.
There certainly is. A lot of different species of birds and insects, and also animals like deer and rabbits.
And I understand you organise educational visits for school parties.
That's right. We can organise a wide range of activities and adapt them to suit all ages.
Can you give me some examples of the activities?
Well, one focus is on science, where we help children to discover and study plants, trees, and insects. They also collect and analyse data about the things they see. Another focus is on geography. The park is a great environment to learn and practice reading a map and using a compass to navigate around the park.
Do you do anything connected with history?
Yes, we do. For instance, the children can explore how the use of the land has changed over time. Then there's leisure and tourism.
That focuses on your visitors, I would imagine.
Yes, mostly. The children find out about them, their requirements, the problems they may cause, and how we manage these. And another subject we cover is music. Here the children experiment with natural materials to create sounds and explore rhythm and tempo.
That must be fun.
Most children really enjoy it.
So let's quickly explain each one. Here, you want to be very careful. A distractor called minimal pairs was used here. Here, people get misled with how words are pronounced. At first, the recording or the speaker said 170 acres and then said 69 hectares. You must be careful to notice the difference between acres and hectares. So pay attention to the correct pronunciation. Now here, we know the answer is stream because it talks about lakes, ponds, and a stream. Then it says children look at data about plants. Includes learning to use a map and a compass. Here we have an example of keywords and related words. Here the distractor is synonymy. Synonymy. Rather than use the word concentrate in the recording, the speaker used focuses. So you must be careful to listen attentively. Leisure and tourism was mentioned, but we heard focuses. And it says on the park's visitors. So the answer is visitors. Number 6, we say children make sounds with natural materials and experiments with rhythm and speed. Alright, let's go on.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10.
7 to 10, remember keywords. They give children a feeling of something. A feeling of something. Children learn new dash and gain self-confidence. So what do they learn? Cost per child. How much does it cost per child? I think I must have written the answer already, but please pay attention.
Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
And of course, all the activities are educational too. Learning outside the classroom encourages children to be creative and to explore and discover for themselves.
I would imagine they get a sense of freedom that might not be a normal part of their lives.
That's right. And very often, the children...
Did you notice that? It said sense of, which is similar to a feeling of. So a sense of freedom. Let's go on.
Discover that they can do things they didn't know they could do, and they develop new skills. This gives them greater self-confidence.
It sounds great.
Now here, instead of saying the learn new skills, the person says the develop, which is one word for learning new. Now be careful not to write new skills because you heard new skills. New is there already, so you just write skills. Alright, let's go on.
Great. So, what about the practical side of it? How much does it cost for a full day visit? We would expect to bring between 30 and 40 children.
If there are over 30, it costs £4.95 for each child who attends on the day. We invoice you afterwards, so you don't pay for children who can't come because of sickness, for example. There's no charge for leaders and other adults, as many as you want to bring.
That sounds very fair. Well, thanks for all the information. I'll need to discuss it with my colleagues, and I hope to get back to you soon to make a booking.
We'll look forward to hearing from you.
Alright, so you see here paraphrasing was used. It doesn't just say adults such as leaders free, it says leaders and other adults. So it sounds like leaders came first. So if you're not paying attention, you probably have missed it. Here it says £4.95, and there are 2 reasons I wrote it this way. Firstly, the instruction says one word or a number. So I know I can't write £4.95. That would be a blatant flout of the rule. And also another thing is pounds is here already, so there's no need to write pound. So I just write 4.95. Alright, let's go to 11 to 15. These are multiple choice questions, so this should be relatively easy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you. That is the end of part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 1.
So because I am sure of my answers. Oh, by the way, make sure to recognize plurality. Be very careful with plurality, because here it says sounds, not sound. Sounds, not just sound. So be very careful with that. Alright, let's go through 11 to 15. During the visit to Malat in France, members especially enjoyed something. So what did they enjoy? Remember, especially enjoyed, which would mean they could have enjoyed others, but there was one they particularly enjoyed the most. What will happen in Stanthorpe to mark the 25th anniversary of the Twinning Association? A is covered by the ad, so look at B. A garden seat will be bought, a footbridge will be built. So if
Part 2. You will hear the chairman of Stanthorpe.
So if it is neither B nor C, then the answer is likely going to be A. Number 13, which event raised most funds this year? So emphasis on most funds and which event. For the first evening with the French visitors, host families are advised to do something. So first evening, French visitors, host families. Number 15, on Saturday evening, there will be a chance to do something. So Saturday evening, and the chance to do what? All right.
Thorpe Twinning Association, which organises the link between Stanthorpe in England and a town in France, talking to members about the year's events. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15.
What you want to do here is pause the video so you can scan. I'm going to show you 11 to 15, so you can pause it and study the questions. This is 11, this is 12, this is 13, this is 14, and this is 15. So you could pause the video at whatever point to make sure you identify the keywords, which I just did already. All right, so it's time to answer the questions.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
It's great to see so many members of the Twinning Association here tonight. Since the twinning link between our two towns, Stanthorpe here in England and Malat in France, was established, the relationship between the towns has gone from strength to strength. Last month, 25 members of the association from Stanthorpe spent a weekend in Malat. Our hosts had arranged a great programme. We learned how cheese is produced in the region and had the chance to taste the products. The theme park trip had to be cancelled, but we all had a great time on the final boat trip down the river. That was the real highlight.
All right, so obviously the answer is the river trip. Here it does a number of things. First, the uses spent instead of visit. So that's why I said you should listen for keywords and not just listen for keywords and related words, not just the keyword. Also, it uses something called excess information by telling you a lot of things just to distract you. Here it tells you they learned how cheese is made there. It tells you the visit to the theme park was cancelled. So it's not C or A. It's B, experiencing a river trip. So the answer is B. All right, let's go on.
This is a special year for the association because it's 25 years since we were founded. In Malat, they're planning to mark this by building a footbridge in the municipal park.
Before we go on, I want you to just quickly notice. Here it says what will happen in Stanthorpe to mark the 25th anniversary. Remember, it started by saying there are two cities, Stanthorpe in England and Malat in France. Now it tells us that in France, Malat, a footbridge will be built. So that cannot be the answer because the question says what will happen in Stanthorpe. So let's keep listening.
We've been discussing what to do here, and we've decided to plant a poplar tree in the museum gardens. We considered buying a garden seat to put there, but the authorities weren't happy with that idea. In terms of
So do you see that now? It says we planned buying a garden seat, but something happened and it did not, so that's wrong. So the answer will be to plant a poplar tree. So the answer is A. All right.
Fundraising to support our activities.
So fundraising.
We've done very well. Our pancake evening was well attended and made record profits. And everyone enjoyed the demonstration of French cookery, which was nearly as successful. Numbers for our film show were limited because of the venue, so we're looking for somewhere bigger next year. We're looking forward to
So look at that. It's none of the things in the recording, none of the things in the recording mentions which one made the most funds or raised the most funds, at least not directly. So this is where you must use your ability to infer. Inference refers to your ability to make a calculated assumption from the little piece of information you've been given. Now we're told that the pancake evening made record profits. Profit meaning money, right? Record means the most money they've ever made. Cookery demonstration says nearly as successful, so which means not as successful as pancake evening. And the film show was limited because of the small space they used. So the answer is B. All right, let's move on.
to welcoming our French visitors here next week. And I know that many of you here will be hosting individuals or families. The coach from France will arrive at 5 p.m. on Friday. Don't try to do too much that first evening, as they'll be tired. So have dinner in the house or garden rather than eating out. The weather looks as if it'll be okay, so you might like to plan a barbecue. Then the next morning's market day in town.
Okay, so we can see here that the instruction says the recording says 5 p.m. and even if 5 p.m. was not mentioned in the question, we see first evening, so we know that's evening, 5 p.m. Then it goes on to say you should not do too much and you should eat in the house or garden and you can make a barbecue there. So obviously you should not go to a local restaurant because it says stay at home. You can't take them for a walk because it says don't do too much. So obviously the answer is have a meal at home. Okay, let's proceed.
And that's always a good place to stroll round. On Saturday evening, we'll all meet up at the football club, where once again we'll have Toby Sharp and his band performing English and Scottish country songs. Toby will already be well known to many of you, as last year he organised our special quiz night and presented the prizes.
Now, it started by saying that we'll meet at the football pitch. But it doesn't say that we're meeting there for a match. So, not this. On Saturday evening, there'll be a chance to watch a match. No. It says that we'll listen to Toby perform country songs. That sounds like listening to a concert. Well, let's wait a minute. Now it says you must know Toby from last year who hosted a quiz night, take part in the competition. So it's not C because this is just describing what happened last year. So it is perform songs, which is a paraphraser of listen to a concert. Remember, we talked about paraphrases. So it's listen to a concert. All right, let's proceed.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20.
Now, for maps, this is what you want to do. For a map, you want to do the following thing. One, you want to take notes of north, south, west, and east. That is the directions. I'm talking about before you play the recording, by the way, or before the recording plays. look at the directions. We have north, west, east, and south. In fact, before the test, become familiar with north, which is up, west, which is left, east, right, south, bottom. Number 2, notice landmarks. By landmarks, I mean the key landmarks, such as here we can see a big lake. Here we can see a smaller lake. By the big lake is towards the west. The smaller lake is towards the northeast. Then we can see trees towards the northwest as well. We can see some trees here towards the southeast. We see a car park, old stables, house, and that's it. Of course, the heading Farley House. Now, when you've done that, the next step in the recording, when the recording starts, is to listen for descriptions. What do I mean by listening for descriptions? Listen for words like after, opposite, beside, across. These are prepositions, by the way, just in case you need a name for them. Alongside. Then adverbs like right, left, which other one? Which other adverb? It's mostly prepositions. Listen for descriptive words. That's the point. What else? What else? What else? Of course, you want to listen for keywords as well. Keywords and related words. When you do this, it becomes easy to navigate the passage, the diagram rather, as you're listening. Now, before the recording starts, notice the keywords in the question. 16 is farm shop, 17 is disabled entry, 18 is adventure playground, 19 is kitchen gardens, number 20 is the temple of the four winds. Here, all you have to do is, when farm shop is mentioned, of course it's chronological, so when farm shop is mentioned, you just have to listen for this description of farm shop. Remember, have the directions always in mind. Same for disabled entry and on and on. All right, so in a few seconds the recording will start. I hope.
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
So pay attention.
Now, on Sunday, we'll be taking our visitors to Farley House. You may not all be familiar with it, so here's a map to help you. You can see the car park at the bottom of the map. There's an excellent farm shop in the grounds where our visitors can buy local produce. It's in the old stables, which is the first building you come to. They're built round a courtyard, and the shop's in the far corner on the left. There's also a small cafe on the right as you go in.
You see how easy that was if you were following. It starts by saying we're starting at the car park. This is an entrance, obviously. And then it says the farm shop is in the old stables and that the shop is located at the top left. Now, to make sure you're not confused, it says there is a cafe by the right. So what does it ask? Farm shop. So it cannot be H. It is G. Because it says the shop is in the top left in the old stables. You see, that it's actually easy if you just pay attention. Now let's keep going.
I know that one or two of our visitors may not be all that mobile. The main entrance to the house has a lot of steps. so you might want to use the disabled entry. This is on the far side of the house from the car park.
This is that now. This is the car park. It is used to distract you at the end. But it says the main entrance has lots of stairs and that the disabled entry is on the far side of the house. This is the car park. Where is the house? This is the house, right? Where is the far side? Here. Which is C. It says far side of the house from the car park. So, C. Let's go on.
Children will probably be most interested in the adventure playground.
Adventure playground.
That's at the northern end of the larger lake, in a bend on the path that leads to the lake.
Did you see that? Northern end of the larger lake in a small bend that leads to the lake. So all you had to do when you heard lake and it head north, you know it's not this one, you know it's this one on the left. So it says on the small bend that leads to the lake. Where is the small bend? This is a bend, right? That leads to the lake. So the answer is B. You see, all I'm doing is listening for descriptions. And I'm using the directions, north. Alright.
There's lots for children to do there. There are a number of lovely gardens near the house. The kitchen gardens are rectangular.
You see, firstly it says near the house, which means whatever we're picking is near the house.
And surrounded by a wall.
It says rectangular and surrounded by a wall. Can you find something rectangular here? This one, right? D.
To the northeast of the house, quite near the smaller lake.
Did you hear that? Towards the northeast of the house and near the lake. So you see, it's very descriptive. Very descriptive.
They're still in use and have a great collection of fruit and vegetables. The Temple of the Four Winds is a bit more of a walk, but it's worth it. Take the path from the car park and go past the western sides of the stables and the house. Then, when the path forks, take the right-hand path. Go up there with the woods on your left, and the temple is right at the end. There are great views over the whole area.
You see, that was easy. It just says, follow the path from the car park after the old stables and the house. And when you get to a fork means a road that is divided into two, or that leads to two different places. So then you just take the right, and then you see the. So the answer is A. That was fun. All you have to do is pay attention. Don't be distracted. Alright.
Okay, so
that is the end of part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 2.
So I'll use that time. I'll spend the time looking at part 3. Choose two letters A to E. Which two things did Colin find most satisfying? Emphasis on most satisfying. Two things. So you're picking two from this list. About this bread reuse project. So two things. Which two things did you find most satisfying? 23 and 24. Which two ways do the students agree? Emphasis on agree. Two ways. That touch-sensitive sensors for food labels could be developed in the future.
You will hear 2 food science students called Marie and Colin discussing their final year projects. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24.
So you see 21, 24. I'm going to scroll. You can pause at any point so you can have time to look through. But remember, usually 30 to 60 seconds.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
I haven't seen you for a bit, Marie.
No, I've been busy with my project.
You're making a vegan alternative to eggs, aren't you? Something that doesn't use animal products.
Yes, I'm using chickpeas. I had two main aims when I first started looking for an alternative to eggs, but actually, I found chickpeas have got more advantages.
Right.
But how about your project on reusing waste food?
Did you see what happened there? They started with something unrelated. So if you were distracted, you'd have been wondering, where's the answer? Where's the answer? That has nothing to do with the question. Now they're about to talk about the bread reuse project.
Food. You were looking at bread, weren't you?
Yes, it's been hard work, but I've enjoyed it. The basic process was quite straightforward, breaking the stale bread down to a paste, then reforming it.
But you were using 3D printing, weren't you, to make the paste into biscuits?
Yeah, I'd used that before, but in this project I had time to play around with different patterns for the biscuits and finding how I could add fruit and vegetables to make them a more appetizing colour, and I was really pleased with what I managed to produce.
It must have been a great feeling to make something appetizing out of bits of old bread that would have been thrown away otherwise.
It was. And I'm hoping that some of the restaurants in town will be interested in the biscuits. I'm going to send them some samples.
I came across something.
Before we go on, paraphrasing is very important here. For C, it started by saying he has enjoyed it and that he was able to break down the bread and create something useful from it. That is basically the same as overcoming problems in a basic period process. Then D, experimenting with patterns. He said patterns, but designs is a synonym. And colors. Now, she mentioned learning how to apply 3D printing, but it was like, oh, that he actually abandoned that, and that's not what was the most fun part. Now, he also mentioned support from local restaurants, but he has not gotten it yet. He said he wants to apply, so he has not received it yet. So that cannot be an answer. You must be careful when answering these questions.
On the internet yesterday that might interest you. It was a company that's developed touch-sensitive sensors for food labels. It's
So follow the keywords here. It says touch sensitive sensors, which means it's about to give you your answers. So pay attention. Remember, it says which two ways do the students agree that touch sensitive sensors for food labels could be developed in the future?
a special sort of label on the food package. When the label's smooth, the food is fresh. And then when you can feel bumps on the label, that means the food's gone bad. It started off as a project to help visually impaired people know whether food was fit to eat or not.
Interesting. So, just solid food?
No, things like milk and juice as well. But actually, I thought it might be really good for drug storage in hospitals and pharmacies.
Right. And coming back to food, maybe it'd be possible to use it for other things besides freshness, like how many kilograms a joint of meat is, for example.
Yes, there's all sorts of possibilities.
Do you see what happened here as well? Excess information. We're told that the label is used to show when food is still good or stale. This is past tense. What is already being used for? The question says two ways. Which two ways do the students agree that touch sensitive sensors for food labels could be developed in the future? So B is wrong because it's already happening. She also mentioned drinks as well as foods, not just food. So no. She mentioned that it helps blind people. So this is already being done. So it is A and D. She mentioned drugs and pharmacies in the future. That's her own idea. Then his idea was it could help to indicate weight of certain foods. So even if you don't hear medical products, you heard drugs and pharmacies, so it's A and E. All right. Let's look at
before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30.
25 to 30. This is an example of matching information. In this example, it says choose 6 answers from the box and write the correct letter A to H next to the questions. So all you have to do is look at 25 to 30. It says food trends. Now, when it says use of local products, when it mentions local products, you scan through A to H and identify what was said about local products here. If the answer is A, only relevant to young people, you write A in the box. If it says reduction in unnecessary packaging, and the answer is B, you just write B. So all you have to just do is, you know what is coming next. Use of local products, focus on the opinions and pick the answer, you write it down. What comes next is reduction in unnecessary packaging. You know that, then look at the answers, pick one. So let's begin. You can spend the next few seconds scanning, looking for keywords on both sides. Look for keywords on both sides. Local products, reduction in unnecessary packaging, gluten-free and lactose-free food, use of branded products related to celebrity chefs, development of ghost kitchens. So I'm looking for ghost kitchens.
Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
I was reading an article about food trends predicting how eating habits might change in the next few years.
Oh, things like more focus on local products. That seems so obvious, but the shops are still full of imported foods.
Yes, they need to be more proactive to address that.
And somehow motivate consumers to change, yes.
One thing everyone's aware of is the need for a reduction in unnecessary packaging. But just about everything...
So you see, it says they need to do more about it. That's why I picked D. Retailers should do more to encourage this. Now, reduction in unnecessary packaging.
Thing you buy in supermarkets is still covered in plastic. The government needs to do something about it.
Absolutely.
You may have been tempted to pick D for 26, but it says the government, not retailers, so it cannot be D.
It's got to change.
Do you think there'll be more interest in gluten and lactose-free food?
For people with...
Okay, so now the next is gluten-free and lactose-free food. 26 was G, by the way. Stricter regulations. Because it says the government needs to do something about it. So that's stricter regulations. Because the government will set the regulations. Let's go on.
With allergies or food intolerances. I don't know. Lots of people I know have been buying that type of food for years now.
Yes, even if they haven't been diagnosed with an allergy.
That's right. One thing I've noticed is the number of branded products related to celebrity chefs. People watch them cooking on TV and then buy things like spice mixes or frozen foods with the chef's name on. I bought something like that once, but I won't again.
Yeah, I bought a ready-made spice mix for chicken, which was supposed to be used by a chef I'd seen on television. And it didn't actually taste of anything.
Did the article mention ghost kitchens?
Before we listen to what this is about ghost kitchens, let's explain 27 and 28. 27 says gluten-free and lactose-free food. And I picked C because she mentioned the people already know about this and people still buy it, even if they've not been diagnosed. So that's C. It already seems to be widespread. Then they talked about celebrity chefs and products that they sell and how disappointing they can be. So that's B. Now let's listen to ghost kitchens.
Used to produce takeaway food.
No, what are they?
Well, they might have the name of a restaurant, but actually they're a cooking facility just for delivery meals. The public don't ever go there. But people aren't aware of that. It's all kept very quiet.
So people don't realise the food's not actually from the restaurant.
Right.
Did you know more and more people are
So people don't realize the food is from the restaurant. So it's F, because it says most people know little about this. If you notice, the key distractor here is paraphrasing and synonymy. So be careful. Now let's take a look at 30, use of mushrooms.
are using all sorts of different mushrooms now to treat different health concerns. Things like heart problems.
They might be taking a big risk there.
Yes, it's hard to know which varieties are safe to eat. Anyway, maybe now.
Risk, dangerous, H.
That is the end of part 3.
So you see, the major thing is being attentive and being aware of the kind of distractors they use. If you're attentive and you're not distracted, you know these distractors, it becomes easy to answer the questions. Now, 31 to 40.
You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3.
For 31 to 40, the instruction says write one word only for each answer. One word only. So what you want to do here is scan the keywords for each question and follow in the chronological order. When it talks about who became an archaeologist, you hear it.
Part 4. You will hear an archaeology student give...
For 31, a local teacher realized the stones beneath the box surface were once dash. So they were once what? That's what you do from 31 to 40. You glance through the keywords, and then when the recording starts, remember one word only. You just listen and go from number to number.
Giving a presentation on an important site in Ireland called the KG Fields. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
So I'll scroll through 31 to 40. You can pause at whatever point so you can scan the keywords on your own. This is 31 to 40. Remember the instruction, one word only. All right.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. For my presentation today, I'm going to talk about the KG Fields in the northwest of Ireland, one of the largest Neolithic sites in the world. I recently visited this site and observed the work that is currently being done by a team of archaeologists there. The site was first discovered in the 1930s by a local teacher, Patrick Caulfield.
Follow the recording. Whenever you hear a keyword, you follow. I underline 1930s because I heard 1930s. I'm underlining local teacher because I also heard local teacher. Let's go on.
He noticed that when local people were digging in the bog, they were constantly hitting against what seemed to be rows of stones. He realized that these must be walls, and that they must be thousands of years old for them to predate the bog which subsequently grew over them.
So you see, that was easy. They used noticed instead of realized. They mentioned rows of stones and bog, then say it must be walls. Alright.
He wrote to the National Museum in Dublin to ask them to investigate, but no one took him seriously. It wasn't until 40 years later, when Patrick Caulfield's son, Seamus, who had become an archaeologist by then, began to explore further.
Did you see that we're not told his name at first? But later on, we're not told his name, but we're not told the word pronoun here is his, which was not mentioned in the record. But we know it says Dash became an archaeologist. Who became an archaeologist? Patrick Seamus' son. So the answer is son. Let's keep reading.
He inserted iron probes into the bog to map the formation of the stones, a traditional method which local people had always used for finding fuel buried in the bog for thousands of years. Carbon dating.
So, traditional method used by local people to dig for fuel.
Later proved that the site was over 5,000 years old and was the largest Neolithic site in Ireland. Thanks to the bog which covers the area, the remains of the settlement at KG Fields, which is over 5,000 years old, are extremely well preserved. A bog is 90% water, its soil so saturated that when the grasses and heathers that grow on its surface die, they don't fully decay but accumulate in layers. Objects remain so well preserved in these conditions because of the acidity of the peat and the deficiency of oxygen. At least 175 days of rain a year are required.
You just see that? It says deficiency. To be deficient means to have little or lack something. So here it says a lack of, which also means deficiency of oxygen. So synonyms and paraphrasing, remember.
Required for this to happen. This part of Ireland gets an average of 225 days. The Neolithic farmers at KG would have enjoyed several centuries of relative peace and stability. Neolithic farmers generally lived in larger communities than their predecessors, with a number of houses built around a community building. As they lived in permanent settlements, Neolithic farmers were able to build bigger houses. These weren't round, as people often assume, but rectangular, with a small hole in the roof that allowed smoke to escape. This is one of many innovations and indicates.
So if you're not careful, you'd have thought the answer was round. But they said they weren't round. They were rectangular. Alright.
That the Neolithic farmers were the first people to cook indoors. Another new technology that Neolithic settlers brought to Ireland was pottery. Fragments of Neolithic pots have been found in KG and elsewhere in Ireland. The pots were used for many things, as well as for storing food. Pots were filled with a small amount of fat, and when this was set alight, they served as lamps. It's thought that the KG fields were.
Pay attention to the plural and singular. It says lamps, not lamp.
Were mainly used as paddocks for animals to graze in. Evidence from the KG fields suggests that each plot of land was of a suitable size to sustain an extended family. They may have used a system of rotational grazing in order.
Remember, it says to support an extended family. But here it says big. Don't write extended family, just write family because the instruction says one word only. Also, you can't say a big extended family. That makes no sense. Extended is synonymous to big in this case. Alright.
In order to prevent overgrazing and to allow for plant recovery and regrowth. This must have been a year-round activity, as no structures have been found which would have been used to shelter animals in the winter. However, archaeologists believe that this way of life at KG ceased abruptly. Why was this? Well, several factors may have contributed to the changing circumstances. The soil would have become less productive and led to the abandonment of farming. The crop root.
You do see that? related words. The soil must have become less productive. Less productive, which is the same as a decline in soil quality. So the answer is soil. Number 40.
Rotation system was partly responsible for this, as it would have been very intensive and was not sustainable. But there were also climatic pressures too. The farmers at KG would have enjoyed a relatively dry period, but this began to change, and the conditions became wetter as there was a lot more rain. It was these conditions that encouraged the bog to form over the area, which...
Do you see? It says a lot more rain, which is the same as saying an increase in rain. This a lot more was exchanged with increase. So it's not difficult per se. It's about paying attention and practicing. The more you practice, the better you become.
Which survives today. So now I'd like to show you some...
On that note, we've come to the end of this class. Let's do a quick summary. Quick summary. Some of the things I wanted to remember are: always pay attention, read for keywords, read questions for keywords, listen for keywords and related words. Number 4, pay attention to descriptions. And most importantly, practice. The more you practice, the better you become with the listening section. So on this note, I hope you've learned a few things. See you in the next video.